Assalamu alaikum students, hope you are doing well. This is Dr. Hasib and today we are going to discuss one of the five special senses, that is equilibrium. So by the end of today's session, inshallah, you will be able to enumerate the components of vestibular system. What is vestibular system? What are the different parts of vestibular system? Then we will discuss the mechanism of receptor stimulation when we rotate head to either left or right side. And at the end of today's discussion, we will discuss the vestibular pathway, focusing on the vestibular spinal pathway. So these are the three learning objectives for today's session. So let's begin. So as we all know, we have five special senses, and the students they tend to forget the fifth special sense, especially in your professional viva exam. uh, there's a tendency that students they forget the fifth special sense, and this is equilibrium. So today we are going to discuss equilibrium or balance. So the function of equilibrium is performed by the internal ear. As we all know, ear can be divided into three components: external ear, middle ear, and inner ear or the labyrinth. So not only ears are responsible for the sense of hearing, one of the five special senses, but these internal ears they also contribute in maintenance of equilibrium or balance. So before going on to the functions, we must revisit the basic anatomy of the labyrinth or the internal ear. You must have read in your anatomy classes that the inner ear can be divided into two parts. Number one is the bony labyrinth or the osseous labyrinth, and the second portion is the membranous labyrinth. The membranous labyrinth is enclosed within the osseous part or the bony part. So these are the two major components of the inner ear: osseous part or the bony part, and membranous part. The osseous labyrinth further consists of three components. One is the vestibule, the other is the semicircular canals, the three semicircular canals, and then the cochlea. Cochlea is responsible for the sense of hearing. So we will not focus into the details of cochlea. We will focus on the vestibular and the semicircular portion. So within the osseous part is the membranous labyrinth, and this membranous labyrinth further consists of three portions. The first is the otolith organ, sometimes known as the ear stones. Otolith organs they include the utricle and the saccule. Besides, we have three semicircular canals: anterior, posterior, or the horizontal, also known as the lateral semicircular canal. And the third component is the duct of cochlea. So this is the basic anatomy of the inner ear: bony labyrinth and enclosing the membranous labyrinth. Bony labyrinth consists of vestibule, semicircular canals, and cochlea. Inside the bony labyrinth, we have membranous labyrinth, which contains the otolith organs. Utricle and saccule are collectively known as otolith organs. And within each semicircular canal, we have semicircular ducts. Similarly, within each cochlea, we have cochlear duct. So you can see the osseous portion of the inner ear or the labyrinth, which consists of the three semicircular canals and the cochlea. So this is the line of demarcation. This is the cochlear portion responsible for the sense of hearing, and this is the vestibular part. So today we will focus on in the vestibular region, the three semicircular canals in the three x, y, and z axis, anterior, posterior, and the horizontal semicircular canal, also known as the lateral semicircular canal. So besides the semicircular canals, we have the otolith organs, and this is known as the vestibule. So this is the bony labyrinth, and enclosed within the bony labyrinth is the membranous labyrinth. So this is how a membranous labyrinth looks like. So this is again the line of demarcation. This is the cochlear portion responsible for the sense of hearing, and this is the vestibular part. You can see the three semicircular ducts. These are semicircular ducts, not semicircular canals. Within each canal, there is semicircular duct. Similarly, within each cochlea, there is cochlear duct. So we have three semicircular ducts and the otolith organs, saccule and utricle. The collective terminology for utricle and saccule is otolith organs. Remember, utricle and saccule, the primary function of these otolith organs is detection of linear acceleration. I repeat, the primary function of these otolith organs, including utricle and saccule, is detection of linear acceleration or linear rotation. So they have contribution in maintenance of static equilibrium. On the other hand, the semicircular canals and the semicircular ducts, they contribute in maintenance of dynamic equilibrium, or you can say angular acceleration. So linear acceleration for utricle and saccule, angular acceleration for the semicircular canals. So you should not get confused by the terminologies like vestibular system, vestibular apparatus, or membranous labyrinth. So there is overlap between these two terminologies. Vestibular system, when we use this term, we are referring to the vestibular apparatus, number one. Number two, all the vestibular nuclei, especially the four central vestibular nuclei that we will discuss later. So when we use the term vestibular system, besides the vestibular nuclei, it also includes the complete vestibular apparatus. And inside the vestibular apparatus, we have two major portions. Number one is the vestibule. Vestibule is the other term for the otolith organ. And then we have the three semicircular canals. So vestibular apparatus consists of the three semicircular canals and the vestibule, which is the otolith organ, including both the utricle and saccule. And this gentleman, the ENT specialist Barani, he was the first who described the physiology of the vestibular apparatus and eventually got Nobel Prize in physiology. So remember, vestibular apparatus is the part of the inner ear, which includes the three semicircular canals and the two otolith organs. The three semicircular canals are the anterior, posterior, and lateral semicircular canal. The lateral semicircular canal is also known as the horizontal semicircular canal. And then there are otolith organs like utricle and saccule. Otolith organs are for detection of linear acceleration. Semicircular canals are for detection of angular acceleration. So the complete vestibular system is for detection of both angular and linear acceleration, where angular acceleration is detected by the semicircular canals and linear acceleration is detected by the otolith organs, namely utricle and saccule. So this is the structure of the vestibular organ, which is the part of the inner ear or the membranous labyrinth. So remember, at the junction of the vestibule and the semicircular canal, there is a small dilatation which connects the semicircular canal with the vestibule. And this junction, which connects the semicircular canal with the vestibular portion, is known as ampulla. And within each ampulla, there are cup-like openings known as cupula. And cupula contains the hair cell organs or the hair cells receptors for the vestibular system. Another important thing to remember is that all these semicircular canals, they are filled with endolymph. So inside the semicircular canals, the fluid present is the endolymph. So endolymph is present inside the canals, and the fluid present outside the canals is the perilymph. So these canals are filled with endolymph and are bathed in perilymph. Again, you can see the vestibular apparatus, the two portions of the vestibular apparatus, semicircular canals and the otolith organs. Here you can see the anterior, posterior, and horizontal semicircular canals meant for angular acceleration detection. And this is the vestibular portion, which contains the utricle and saccule. Utricle and saccule are collectively known as the ear stones or otolith organs. Very important point is that this vestibular system is filled with the fluid known as the endolymph. Now this endolymph is in communication with the cochlear duct. So communication between cochlear duct and the vestibular system is there through this fluid, that is the endolymph. And the fluid outside the semicircular canals is the perilymph. Here you can see this is the vestibular portion. This is the vestibular portion of the vestibular apparatus. Sometimes this is known as the vestibule, utricle, and saccule. At the junction of the vestibular part and the semicircular canal, there's a small dilatation or swelling here for each semicircular canal. These swellings are known as ampullae, and the singular is ampulla. So there are three ampullae, one for each semicircular canal. And within each ampulla, there is a gelatinous opening known as cupula. So besides the three semicircular canals, we have otolith organs. Remember, the other name for otolith is statoconium or otoconium, or sometimes known as statolith. In simple words, auto is for ear and lith is for stone, ear stones. So these ear stones or otolith, these are made up of calcium carbonate and utricle and saccule. These are the earstone organs or the otolith organs. Both are meant for detection of linear acceleration. This is the thing to remember. The primary function of the otolith organ is maintenance of static equilibrium, or you can say linear rotation and linear acceleration. Unlike the semicircular canals, which contribute in maintenance of dynamic equilibrium and they play their part in angular acceleration. Now we will discuss the receptors of the vestibular apparatus. Remember the five special senses. They are called special because the receptors for these five special senses are special and unique. Same is the case with equilibrium, one of the five special senses. The receptors for equilibrium are very unique as far as the properties are concerned, and the hair cells are the receptors for vestibular apparatus, the hair cells. And these hair cells are subtype of mechanoreceptors, right? So the stimulus is mechanical in nature, and the hair cells present inside the vestibular system, these are the receptors. As far as the adaptability or adaptation is concerned, these hair cells are slowly adapting receptors. So they adapt very slowly. Yes, they do adapt to a certain degree, but the adaptation is very slow. So where these receptors or the hair cells are located, they are located not only in the semicircular canals but also within the vestibule. So the two portions of the vestibular apparatus, semicircular canal and the vestibule, each contains hair cells. And the hair cells for the semicircular canal, they are enclosed within the ampulla, and this is known as the crista ampullaris. So crista ampullaris is the receptor organ for semicircular canals. I repeat, crista ampullaris is the receptor organ for the semicircular canals. So these hair cells, they are located within the ampulla inside the crista ampullaris. And similar hair cells are also present in the otolith organs, that is utricle and saccule. And both are located inside a tissue mass known as macula, and the plural is maculae. So separate macula for utricle and separate macula for saccule. And these maculae, these are the sensory organs for the vestibular portion. So remember that the receptors for the vestibular apparatus, they are the hair cells inside the crista ampullaris for semicircular canals, plus the hair cells inside the maculae of the utricle and saccule. So the stimulus will be detected by these hair cells. Here you can see the membranous labyrinth. These dilatations are known as the ampullae. Here, the junction between the vestibule and the semicircular canal. This is the ampullae. One ampulla, second ampulla, and third ampulla. So within each ampulla, there is crista ampullaris, and this is the microstructure of crista ampullaris. You can see the hair cells these hair cells, they are projecting towards the cupula. These are fine hair cells. These hair cells are the receptor organs and they are enclosed within the gelatinous structure known as cupula. So this cupula is within the ampulla, and the complete structure, which includes the hair cells, the gelatinous mass of cupula, and the fibers, is known as the crista ampullaris. So crista ampullaris is the sensory organ or the receptor organ for the semicircular canals. Similarly, the sensory organ for the utricle and saccule is the macula. Macula is for utricle and saccule. You can see this is the utricle and here is the saccule. Both utricle and saccule, these are meant for linear acceleration. So in one line, the receptors for the vestibular apparatus are the crista ampullaris, which includes the hair cells, and this crista ampullaris is within the semicircular canals. Similarly, for the utricle and saccule, the receptor organs are the maculae. So, how do these receptors are stimulated? Whenever there is head rotation to any one side, these hair cells they bend, and the direction in which these hair cells bend will determine whether the hair cells are getting excited or inhibited. For example, this is the microstructure of the hair cell. These are the hair cells projecting outwards. These are known as the stereocilia. These small hair cells are known as stereocilia. And at one end of the hair cell, there is a large cilium. This large cilium is known as kinocilium. So, kinocilium is usually located at one end. Secondly, it is larger in size as compared to rest of the hair cells or the stereocilia. The third unique feature of kinocilium is that this kinocilium is usually non-motile. So the movement occurs within the stereocilia. The kinocilium is usually non-motile. So the stereocilia, they either bend towards the kinocilium
10 बजे हैं बेटा सो जाओ सो जाओ
or sometimes they bend away from the kinocilium. So, and these stereocilia, they are connected by a filamentous attachment. So if one stereocilia moves,
पढ़ ही
all
रही हूँ सो
rest of the stereocilia, they will also move in the same direction. So the movement of stereocilia towards the kinocilium or away from the kinocilium will determine whether there is excitation of the receptor or inhibition of the receptor. We will discuss how excitation and inhibition takes place. Here you can see this is the ampulla. Ampulla is the junction between the semicircular canal and the vestibule. Within the ampulla there is cupula. Here you can see the cup-shaped structure or cupula. And here are the hair cells, the stereocilia projecting upwards. And the fluid present is the endolymph. So endolymph is the fluid inside and perilymph is the fluid outside the semicircular canal. So this is the crista ampullaris. Crista ampullaris is the receptor organ for the semicircular canal. The receptor organ for the utricle and saccule is macula. So separate macula for utricle and separate macula for saccule. You can see this is utricle. This is utricle, which is horizontally placed. So the utricle is horizontally placed, and the direction of the stereocilia is on the vertical plane or the vertical axis. Similarly, if you see the saccule, this is saccule. Saccule is vertically placed, and the direction of the stereocilia is on the horizontal axis. So if there is movement on the horizontal axis, like movement in a car, the macula of the utricle will be stimulated. Similarly, if the movement is in the vertical plane, for example, movement in a lift, the macula of saccule will be stimulated. Since the axes are different for each of the macula, so the stimulation will be different as well. One is placed in the horizontal direction, the other is placed in the vertical direction. So if there is stimulus in the horizontal plane, the utricle will be stimulated. If the movement is on the vertical axis, the saccule will be stimulated. Both are, remember, utricle and saccule, both are meant for linear acceleration, unlike the semicircular canals, which are meant for angular acceleration. So the thing to remember is angular acceleration detection is done by semicircular canals, and linear acceleration is detected by the utricle and saccule. Although the planes are different, one is in the horizontal plane, the other is in the vertical axis, but both are meant for detection of linear acceleration. Again, you can see the structure of the ampulla. This is the semicircular canal, and this is the vestibular portion, and this is the ampulla. Within the ampulla, we have crista ampullaris. Here you can see the hair cells projecting upwards. These are the hair cells, and this crista ampullaris is the receptor organ for the semicircular canal. So the signal is received by the vestibular nerve. This is the afferent nerve fiber. So the signal will be received, the input will be received through this afferent nerve fiber. So I have specially placed this slide for you people. The thing to note is that the receptor sites, the hair cells, which are present in the macula and the crista ampullaris, these are very similar to the hair cells of the cochlea. The structure is the same, but the function is different. Structurally speaking, the hair cells of the cochlea are very similar to the hair cells of the vestibular apparatus. Remember that the hair cells of cochlea, they are meant for sense of hearing, whereas the hair cells of vestibular apparatus, they are meant for maintenance of equilibrium. Now this is the microstructure of the stereocilia. These are the stereocilia projecting upwards, and each stereocilium is connected with the filamentous attachment. So movement of one stereocilium causes movement of the rest of the cilia. And this is the largest cilium, usually placed at one end. This is known as kinocilium. So kinocilium is large in size, number one. Secondly, it is placed at one end, whether right or left. Thirdly, this kinocilium is non-motile. So movement takes place within the stereocilia. The stereocilia will move either towards the kinocilium or away from the kinocilium. So if the stereocilia they move towards the kinocilium, here you can see movement is in the right direction from left to right. So stereocilia are bending or tilting towards this kinocilium. Here you can see. So movement of one cilium causes movement of rest of the cilia. So what happens when the stereocilia they move towards the kinocilium? So movement towards the kinocilium will causes excitation of the hair cells. By excitation, we are referring to depolarization. And how depolarization takes place? By opening of the potassium channels. So influx of potassium is there. As far as depolarization is concerned, you must have read that most of the depolarization that takes place in the neurons and other receptor organs, this is due to an influx of sodium. But the unique feature, the special property of the vestibular apparatus and the vestibular receptor is that depolarization occurs due to influx of potassium. So this is the distinguishing feature. That is why we call it as a special sense. So instead of sodium influx, there is potassium influx. So influx of potassium ions will create positivity inside the hair cells. So positive charge will be created inside the cells. So the greater the number of potassium ions entering the hair cell, the greater will be the depolarization. And this depolarization is followed by release of the neurotransmitter. Remember, neurotransmitter is released only when there is the appropriate stimulus. And the primary stimulus for the release of neurotransmitter is influx of calcium. No neurotransmitter will be released if there is no calcium influx. So this is the primary stimulus required for release of neurotransmitter. So release of neurotransmitter will be followed by further processing of the signal. Sometimes the stereocilia they move to the opposite side. Here you can see the stereocilia they are moving from right to left. You can see they are tilting away from the kinocilium. So movement of stereocilium away from the kinocilium will cause inhibition of the hair cell, and this inhibition is known as hyperpolarization. So what happens during hyperpolarization? No potassium influx will be there. So no more positive charge will enter. Hence, the inside of the hair cell will become negatively charged. So all this will be negatively charged. Since the calcium channels are closed, no neurotransmitters will be released. So no neurotransmitter will be released at the junction of the hair cell. And since there is no release of neurotransmitter, no action potential and no further processing of signal will take place. So it depends whether the stereocilia are moving towards the kinocilium or away from the kinocilium. Tilting or bending of stereocilia towards the kinocilium causes depolarization or excitation. Movement away from the kinocilium or tilting of stereocilia away from the larger cilia, that is the kinocilium, causes hyperpolarization or inhibition. Remember, during depolarization, potassium ions are involved rather than sodium ions. So this is the microstructure. You can see the small stereocilium, the motile stereocilia, which move either towards the kinocilium or away from the kinocilium. The kinocilium is located at one end. This kinocilium is larger in size, as you can see, plus it is located at one end, whether right or left. And thirdly, this is non-motile. So this is the microstructure of the hair cells. If these hair cells, stereocilia, they move towards the kinocilium, this will cause excitation or depolarization. On the other hand, if the stereocilia they move away from the kinocilium, this will cause inhibition or hyperpolarization. So when you rotate your head to either left side or right side, what happens to these stereocilia? Suppose this is the left lateral semicircular canal here, and this is the right lateral semicircular canal. Lateral semicircular canal is the same as horizontal semicircular canal. So when you rotate your head in counterclockwise direction, that is towards the left side. So movement in the counterclockwise direction is towards the left side. So what happens when you rotate your head to the left side? You can see the left horizontal semicircular canal is depolarized. This will cause excitation and development of action potential. I repeat, movement of or rotation of head towards the left side will cause excitation within the left horizontal semicircular canal. You can see the stereocilia, they are bending towards the kinocilium. This will cause excitation. If you see on the opposite side, the stereocilia, they are moving away from the kinocilium. So there is hyperpolarization or inhibition at the opposite side. So the easier way to remember is when you rotate your head to the left side, the left horizontal semicircular canal will be excited and the opposite will be inhibited. Similarly, if you rotate your head to the right side, the right semicircular canal will be excited and the opposite will be inhibited. So why there is excitation at one end and inhibition at the opposite end? So this is the mechanism behind the excitation and inhibition during head rotation. As you can see, this is the ampulla and this is the crista ampullaris here. You can see the hair cells. So when you rotate your head to one side, so what happens during head rotation? The endolymph within the semicircular canals, it also moves. Not only there is movement of the endolymph, but the cupula is dragged as well. So this cupula is dragged through the endolymph when there is head rotation. So this will cause the hair cells to bend and the hair cells will become depolarized and excitation will take place. And when the movement is stopped, the end which is excited will be inhibited and the opposite end which was inhibited will get excited. Here you can see, suppose this is the left lateral semicircular canal and this is the right lateral semicircular canal. This is the direction of the stereocilium. You can see the stereocilia are vertically placed when there is no head rotation, right? And when you rotate your head to right side, what happens during rotation of head on the right side? So rightward movement will cause excitation or stimulation of the right lateral semicircular canal. As you can see, the stereocilia, they are bending towards the kinocilium, and this will cause excitation. The mechanism we have already covered. Potassium influx is there. Potassium influx will be followed by calcium influx and release of neurotransmitter. And that is the reason a full blown action potential proceeds. So when there is head rotation to the right side, endolymph moves towards the right side. In the left, in the right semicircular canal, this will cause excitation. The cupula is dragged through the endolymph, and that is the reason there is inhibition or hyperpolarization at the opposite end. And all this is due to inertia. The inertia of the cupula is different from the inertia of the endolymph. So the endolymph continues to flow for an extra period of time. And this is the time at the this is the direction of the stereocilia at the end of rotation. You can see the end which was excited early on the right semicircular canal. At the end of rotation, now this is inhibited. And the left semicircular canal which was inhibited at the onset of rotation will now be excited. So to summarize, whenever there is head rotation to either right side or left side, this will cause the endolymph to move. Not only the endolymph rotates, but the cupula is dragged through the endolymph as well. And this dragging of cupula through the endolymph causes the hair cells to bend, and there is depolarization or excitation. If you rotate your head to the right side, the right horizontal semicircular canal will be excited and the opposite will be inhibited. If you rotate your head to left side, the left horizontal semicircular canal will be excited and the opposite will be inhibited. This is during the onset of movement. When there is cessation of head rotation, the end which was excited earlier will be inhibited, and the end which is inhibited earlier will get excited. Now we will discuss the vestibular pathway or the central vestibular pathway. So like every other pathway, the signal transmission or the impulse transmission, it starts from the receptors. And the receptors for the vestibular apparatus, we have already discussed that these are the hair cells. The hair cells of the otolith organs, that is the utricle and saccule, they are located within the tissue mass known as macula, and this is the site for the receptor. And whenever there is impulse transmission or stimulus is received from the afferent nerve, the receptors, the hair cells will be excited, and then this signal will be carried through the vestibular ganglion. From the vestibular ganglion here, the fibers will travel upwards to the vestibular nuclei, and these are the four-part vestibular nucleus: the superior division, inferior division, the medial division, and the lateral division or the lateral vestibular nuclei. So there are four vestibular nuclei: superior, inferior, medial, and lateral. The other name for lateral vestibular nucleus is Dieter's nucleus. Deiter. I repeat, the other name for lateral vestibular nucleus is Dieter's nucleus. Deiter. Dieter. So impulse will be carried by these vestibular nuclei towards the reticular formation, towards the 3, 4, and 6 cranial nerve nuclei. Some will be carried by the vestibulospinal tract, and these fibers will terminate within the spinal cord. Some of the fibers will be carried upwards towards the reticular formation. There are other fibers which terminate at the 3rd, 4th, and 6th cranial nerve nuclei. The remaining fibers, they ascend till the level of thalamus, and the remaining chunk will terminate at the cerebrum. Remember, this figure is taken from Ganong's review of medical physiology. So kindly go through the pages of Ganong's physiology. You can see the vestibular pathway. It starts from the vestibular ganglion. Here you can see the vestibular ganglion. Impulse will be transmitted to the vestibular nuclei. These are the vestibular nuclei: the superior, medial, inferior, and lateral. The other name for inferior is spinal. The other name for lateral is Dieter's nucleus. And this Dieter's nucleus is responsible for impulse transmission in the form of lateral vestibulospinal tract. And these lateral vestibulospinal tracts, they will terminate at the spinal cord. Then there are other fibers which ascend to the thalamus and eventually reach the cerebrum, somatosensory cortex of the cerebrum. Moreover, there are connections of the vestibular nuclei with the cerebellum as well. Remember the role of cerebellum in maintenance of equilibrium. We will discuss in the coming lectures what are the different components of cerebellum, how do these components play their part in maintenance of equilibrium. So equilibrium is not only maintained by the vestibular apparatus, but there is some degree of contribution by the cerebellum as well. So the vestibular pathway starts from the vestibular ganglion, and ganglion, as we all know, this is a collection of multiple neurons. And then from the vestibular ganglion, vestibular nerve will arise. Remember, the 8th cranial nerve is the vestibular cochlear nerve, and there are two divisions of this 8th cranial nerve. The first division is the cochlear division, which is meant for the sense of hearing, and the second is the vestibular division, which is meant for equilibrium. So the vestibular portion of the 8th cranial nerve will arise from the vestibular ganglion, and this will terminate in the vestibular nucleus. All the four parts or the four divisions of the vestibular nucleus: medial, lateral, superior, inferior. So not only this vestibular nerve will terminate at the vestibular nucleus, but also to the cerebellum. Remember the role of cerebellum as well. So the medial vestibular nucleus is responsible for the fibers of semicircular canals. All the fibers of semicircular canals will terminate in the superior and medial nucleus. So superior and medial nucleus will receive fibers from semicircular canals. The lateral nucleus or the Dieter's nucleus will receive fibers from the otolith organs. I repeat, the lateral nucleus or the Dieter's nucleus, this nucleus will receive the input from the vestibule or the otolith organs. So the fibers from the otolith organs, utricle and saccule both, they will project to the lateral nucleus, and this will continue as the lateral vestibulospinal pathway. Moreover, some of the fibers from utricle and saccule, they terminate to the cerebellum, others go to the reticular formation as well. And the remaining fiber, they ascend till the level of thalamus and eventually terminate at the final destination, that is the cerebrum or the primary somatosensory cortex to be precise. So this is the central vestibular pathway. This figure is taken from Ganong's physiology. Kindly go through the pages of Ganong's physiology. Remember the role of the third, fourth, and sixth cranial nerve nuclei. Cranial nerve 3, cranial nerve 4, and cranial nerve 6 nuclei. Some of the fibers, they will ascend and terminate at these cranial nerve nuclei, and 3, 4, 6 cranial nerve nuclei, these are the nuclei, these are the cranial nerves responsible for the extraocular movements. So the fibers from the vestibular ganglion, they not only terminate to the vestibular nucleus, they also terminate to the cerebellum, they also terminate to the reticular formation. Some of the fibers, they go to the thalamus, some of the fibers, they terminate to the cortex, and remaining fibers, a few part of the fibers, they terminate at the 3, 4, and 6 cranial nerve nuclei. So as far as the lateral vestibulospinal tract is concerned, the input is from the vestibular nuclei, and this will continue as the lateral vestibulospinal tract through the medulla and enter the anterior white column of the spinal cord, and the site of termination is the anterior gray horn of the spinal cord, the interneurons of the anterior gray horns. I'm going through these slides quickly because we have already discussed the vestibulospinal tract in detail in the last lecture as well. So the functions include facilitation of the extensors, inhibition of the flexors, plus maintenance of body posture, maintenance of equilibrium. All these are multiple functions of the vestibulospinal pathway. So this is all for today's session. Today we discussed the components of the vestibular apparatus. Vestibular apparatus includes the 3 semicircular canals and the otolith organ. The 3 semicircular canals, anterior, posterior, and lateral, they are meant for detection of angular acceleration. The otolith organs, both utricle and saccule, they are meant for detection of linear acceleration. There are specific receptors for the utricle and saccule, and these sensory organs are known as maculae. Similarly, there are specific receptors for the semicircular canals located within the ampulla inside the cupula, and these sensory organs are known as crista ampullaris. Head rotation to right side will stimulate the right horizontal semicircular canal and cause depolarization or excitation, and the opposite end will be inhibited. Similarly, head rotation to the left side will stimulate the left horizontal semicircular canal, and this will get excited and the opposite will be inhibited. All these events, they occur at the onset of head rotation, and at the cessation of head rotation, the events will be reversed. And all this mechanism of excitation and inhibition of air cells, this is due to dragging of the cupula through the endolymph because both have different inertia. So that's all for today's session. Thank you. Allah Hafiz.